Mr. Bajewski here with you again, along with my co-teacher, Mr. Schnitzel. Alrighty, we're going to be talking about the next set of notes today, sectionalism between the North and the South, 1844 to 1860. Now, I'm going to tell you, these are some really important notes, major notes right here. They cover 16 humongously important years. I would make an argument this might be the most important unit of the year. Schnitzel, do you agree with me, brother? No comment. Okay. Anyways, these are large notes, 19 pages. Alrighty, there's 130 slides here. Again, you know the routine. I'll try to indicate when I change slides. I'll let you know occasionally, periodically, where I'm at. And again, sectionalism is our big topic. We should be familiar with what that is. Schnitzy, you and Guinness are sometimes sectional when it comes to dog toys, right? Who gets the dog toy, you or your big brother? Okay, well, you're about to fall asleep on me here. Alrighty, usually my students do that in class, but today it's my dog. Man, so I'm going to put you down, big boy. Alrighty, so we can get going. Alrighty, folks, we're going to start here on slide 5. We're going to look at our first theme. After the Mexican War, following the acquisition of the Mexican Cession, we're going to have the tensions heat up temporarily. Finally, they're going to be resolved by the Compromise of 1850. For the short term. Alrighty, of course, they're going to rise up again down the road. Now, slide 6. Of course, this is a map of the Mexican Cession. This is the area that the United States acquired as part of the Mexican-American War, or the Mexican War. Large chunk of territory. We know the circumstances behind that. Alrighty, again, slide 7 is another image, a separate image, same thing. It goes ahead and shows you how much of Mexico, how much did Mexico actually lose? They lost a large chunk of land, as we already know. Okay, number 8. Alrighty, slide 8 here, the Mexican Cession, and let us begin. Okay, well, hey, following the acquisition of these territories, this Mexican Cession, there's an incredible debate that's going to rage across this country about what we do with it. Are these going to be free? Are they going to be slave? How are we going to resolve this issue? This is really almost going to be a microcosm of the conflict that's going to become nationwide over the next 15 years. It really begins in 1848 with something called the Wilmot Proviso. Alrighty, it was passed by the House. It was rejected by the Senate. It was passed by Northerners, and it was an attempt to try to prevent the extension of slavery into any of the territories and states of the Mexican Cession. Of course, we know who proposed it: abolitionists and free soilers up north. They teamed up. They had enough votes in the House. It was blocked by Southern senators, and so it never becomes a law. But very much like the Talmadge Amendment, led Southerners to become much more riled up. It led to the Missouri Compromise in the past. Same thing happens here. When the North tries with the Wilmot Proviso, even though they fail, it infuriates Southerners. Alrighty. Again, slavery becomes the hot issue. Manifest Destiny is going to die down. Slavery is really going to take over for these couple of years. All right, and it's an issue that threatens to split both of the major parties along northern and southern lines. Both the Whigs and the Democrats really had no solution here that was acceptable to everybody. Okay, well, ultimately, since neither of the parties really had a solution for slavery, to keep it or to get rid of it, what the Democrats decided on was something called popular sovereignty. It's almost like if the government, the federal government, can't make a decision on something, they're just going to hand it to the states and kind of ask them to decide for themselves. Popular sovereignty. Popular where the people are sovereign, where they make the decision. All right, so that's what popular sovereignty means. The people make the decision. Emerged as a way to kind of avoid having the government make the issue themselves. Alrighty. The Democrats come up with it. It's actually presented by the Democratic candidate, a guy named Lewis Cass, who was a former military man, former general as well. Again, what it said was the people would vote in a territory when they became a state. They would determine for themselves whether they wanted to be free or slave. Okay? Again, it was supported by many because it seemed to appeal to the concepts of tradition, democratic traditions, Republican traditions. We're going to put it in the hands of the people to decide for themselves. Politicians loved it as well because it allowed them to not have to make a decision. They didn't have to come out strongly one way or the other, so that when elections came around, they could basically say, it wasn't me that made that decision, it was the people of the state. Alrighty, blame them, not me. Alrighty, it's a bandage, it's a temporary bandage to this slavery issue. It's not a permanent solution, obviously. That's why we're going to have the Civil War 15 years later, which finally permanently resolves the issue of slavery once and for all. Excuse me. Let's begin with this election of 1848 because this is really when the slavery issue reignites again. The Whigs are going to nominate, Zachary Taylor. They're going to go to their old. They're going to go to what's made them successful in the past. They find a military guy, this guy from the Mexican War, Zachary Taylor, one of our big heroes of the Battle of Buena Vista. He was kind of neutral on slavery. All right, he didn't feel very strongly about it one way or the other. He owned slaves. He owned a plantation. But he wasn't very strongly in support of it. Alrighty, almost begrudgingly accepted it. Again, the Democrats nominate Lewis Cass. Let's remember Cass believed in popular sovereignty. Alrighty, and that's where it's really presented for the first time. The Free Soilers run as well. The Free Soil Party emerges. They're going to be very strong, actually, pretty organized. They run Martin Van Buren, the old Democratic president, the New Yorker. The Free Soilers were made up of obviously Northern Whigs, alrighty, I should say Northern anti-slavery and abolitionist supporters. Also Democrats, Northern Democrats, what few remained, and members of the old Liberty Party, alrighty. So they're a one-issue party. They're focused specifically and solely on one thing, and that's preventing slavery from expanding, alrighty. They do support the Wilmot Proviso. That shouldn't surprise anybody. After all, they were trying to stop the spread of slavery into new territories. Their motto was free soil, free speech, free labor, and free men. Simple enough. Alrighty. They did want federal assistance for internal improvements. Alrighty, that makes sense since a lot of them are Northerners. They did want the government to open up free land out west for people to settle on if they would agree to be farmers. Alrighty. The Free Soilers are kind of the trailblazers for the Republican Party that's going to form about 6 years later. All of these Free Soilers later on are going to become Republicans. Ultimately, guys, this is the result. Alrighty, Zachary Taylor's going to win this election, 163 to 127 to 0. To be honest with you, the reason that he wins primarily is because he doesn't have a very strong position on slavery. Alrighty, since he doesn't come out really strongly in support or against slavery. He doesn't anger that many people on either side of the issue. They considered him more neutral, more balanced, alrighty, and so therefore they went with him rather than go with Cass, alrighty, who basically focused more on the issue. I know that seems silly, but the man who ignored the slavery issue technically won, and maybe because of that, but that's how much the nation was confused, unsure about what to do about slavery, and desperately wanted to stay together no matter what. Okay? Excuse me. Zachary Taylor, there he is. Alrighty, I think you can tell there in image number 15 and slide number 15. He doesn't look like a very healthy man. He wasn't. Alrighty, he was a little bit older. He's going to be a guy who's going to battle illness. In fact, he's only going to make it through 1.5 years of his presidency before he passes away. Alrighty, so if the idea was to elect Taylor in an effort to kind of keep the balance, avoid having to deal with the slavery issue. When he dies, all of that is going to change. Alrighty, let's go to slide 16. Really the culmination up to the Compromise of 1850. Alrighty, and of course we're going to begin here. Actually, we're going to move ahead to slide 18. Skip over some of those introductions. Alrighty, well, slide 18 starts with California. Because, hey, California is ready to be a state almost immediately. Alrighty, gold was discovered in California in 1848. People flocked out west. And so California had a large population, large enough to be a state. Those prospectors, by the way, the folks that came rushing out here in 48, were known as 48ers and 49ers. Alrighty. Most of the folks come in 49. That's why, of course, we have the 49ers. Those of you football fans know those San Francisco 49ers. They're named, of course, after the people that came out during the gold rush. Alrighty. Of course, we know most people aren't going to make it rich off of the gold rush. Most are going to fail, actually, but it brings them out here, and they're going to end up staying out in California. Point being, huge population, right? And so that's going to ultimately mean California's ready to be a state. They write a constitution in 1849. That's what they're expected to do. And in that constitution, hey, California excludes slavery. They're going to be a free state. They have no need for it, alrighty? And they were going to go straight from a territory to a state. Alrighty, that's how large their population already was. Southerners opposed California coming in as a free state, obviously, right? Because to them, that would cause them to become weaker. Alrighty, ultimately, extreme Southerners that are considered the extremists, the most radical. We call them fire eaters. Alrighty, because it seemed like they when they argued when they fought, when they spoke out against the North. There was so much anger and vitriol in their mouths. It almost seemed like they were breathing fire. Alrighty. Anyways, Southerners threatened secession if California was added as a free state. Alrighty. So once again now, Southerners, just like they did with the nullification crisis, are warning, hey, if we don't get our way here, we'll secede. We'll break away from the nation. Alrighty. Here's the other problem for the South. The rest of the Mexican cession, New Mexico and the Utah territories, they also look like they're probably going to be free states. Those of you who have been to New Mexico and Utah, you know that's not cash crop agriculture. That's really dry. And so therefore it seemed like they would probably be free states as well down the road. Alrighty, so obviously this meant that the North was going to gain a bunch of free states potentially as a result of the Mexican-American War. Alrighty. Another issue that really riled up Southerners was the Underground Railroad. Remember, they found out about it in the 1840s. They're furious. It seemed like them it was proof that the North was violating the Constitution, that it was violating the fugitive slave law, that they were actively encouraging slaves to rebel and to revolt. Southerners demand a strong, strict fugitive slave law as well. We also had some territorial issues, alrighty, dating back to when Texas was a republic. Texas actually believed that they should be much larger than they actually were. They believed a lot of the territory and surrounding states should have belonged to them, alrighty, and so actually they threatened war against New Mexico. They threatened to seize most of New Mexico, even though they're both part of the United States, because they believed that land rightfully ought to belong to them. Alrighty, so we've got all these issues that are kind of simmering beneath the surface. Alrighty, we've got the issue of California and New Mexico. Alrighty, Southerners freaking out there. We've got the issue over the fugitive slave law. Alright, we've got the issue with Texas and its western boundaries and their disputes with other states. And again, they threatened to invade New Mexico, to seize the capital of New Mexico. The federal government didn't agree with Texas, didn't believe that Texas had the right to those lands. Alrighty, President Taylor actually threatened to use force against Texas if they didn't back down, if they didn't settle down. That riled up, that enraged Southerners even more. Alrighty, one other major issue. Northerners were really outraged that slave auctions were still being allowed to continue in the nation's capital. Now, hey. They were domestic slave auctions. So what I mean is these slaves were raised in the United States, born and raised in the United States, but then they were sold to other Americans at auctions. And a lot of Northerners and a lot of abolitionists were embarrassed by this. Because remember, we have a lot of foreigners, a lot of dignitaries, a lot of diplomats that come to our capital, and they would see these slave auctions taking place. A lot of Northerners thought this was a major embarrassment for the nation. They wanted something done about it. Alrighty, so we've got all these different issues that are simmering beneath the surface. Alrighty, and again, slide 25 tells us how Southerners, secessionists, fire eaters, basically threatened secession. They did it again in Nashville in 1850. Alrighty, if their demands weren't met, alrighty, if California was admitted as a free state, they were going to leave the nation. They were going to secede. They were going to break away. They were going to declare their independence. Well, of course, Henry Clay is going to step in for the third time during this period. He's going to forge one last compromise. Now, you need to understand, this is like one last attempt at keeping the peace by those three great congressmen, those three lions, Clay, Calhoun, and Webster. All three of them are literally on their deathbeds. All three of them are going to be dead in a couple of years. And so this is their one last attempt to try to keep the peace, to try to avoid war. And they're going to kind of, to be honest with you, compromise and accept various parts of this in an effort to prevent the nation from breaking apart. Alrighty, so Henry Clay hears all of these different concerns, all of these different complaints that Americans have here over the slavery issue. And he says, hey, let's respond to all of these complaints together. Let's wrap it up in one big compromise so we can resolve everybody's problems all at one time. And he basically says, hey, North-South, you're not going to completely get your way here. You need to compromise on certain issues. You need to give in. All right, and be willing to accept, not getting your way all the time. Alrighty, so here it is. Clay is going to propose it. Alrighty, one, that the North is going to support a much stricter fugitive slave law. They're going to give in to the South. They're going to give them a much stronger fugitive slave law. Alrighty. We're going to go to slide 28. Alrighty. in addition to that, well, first I'm just going to tell you, when Clay proposes the compromise, originally Calhoun refused it. All right, basically said we're not going to compromise on anything. Then Daniel Webster gets up and he speaks on the issue, and he advocated for compromise as well. So ultimately, because Clay and Webster supported a compromise, Northerners were more and more willing to accept it. Alrighty. Ultimately, Clay, who is kind of getting up there in age, is going to rely on some other young American congressmen to help him get this compromise passed. Alrighty. Anyways, ultimately what happens is Clay is going to be able to get this compromise agreed to by enough of Congress to get it passed. Alrighty. Again, it's going to temporarily keep the peace. Now, here's the problem for Clay. President Taylor has indicated he's going to veto it if it gets to him. He doesn't support this compromise. He doesn't support a stronger fugitive slave law. He especially was angry, to be honest with you, at Texas. He didn't want to give in to Texas over the whole New Mexico issue. Alrighty. Well, fortunately for Clay, Zachary Taylor dies. Alright, he dies as president. Millard Fillmore takes over the vice president, and Fillmore goes ahead and signs the compromise, doesn't veto it. So because of the death of Taylor, we do have this compromise of 1850 that's going to be passed. Alrighty. Anyways, we'll take a look at the various parts of the compromise right now. There's Millard Fillmore. He's going to take over. He's a Whig. He's going to serve one term as president. Well, he's going to finish up Taylor's term, to be honest with you. Alrighty. The compromise itself, what is it? Well, what the North is going to benefit because California is going to be admitted as a free state. In addition to that, the slave trade is going to be abolished in the District of Columbia. Alrighty, so those are both victories for the North. Alrighty. Both sides agree to popular sovereignty for the other parts of the Mexican cession other than California. We're talking about New Mexico and Utah. Alrighty. Now, popular sovereignty, but most Americans believed in the end that those would probably become free, and they end up doing so. Alrighty. What does the South get? They get a stricter, stronger fugitive slave law, which was the #1 thing they wanted. Alrighty. Secondly, Texas gets $10 million from the federal government to drop their claims to New Mexico. Even though the federal government didn't really think Texas was justified, to keep the peace, they're going to give Texas $10 million. In exchange, Texas basically says, okay, we do not have a right to those lands that we thought we did before. Alrighty. Slide 33 shows us the map. Again, you got California admitted as a free state. You got the New Mexico and Utah territories that are going to be accepted under popular sovereignty. Later on, they're going to become free as well. We're going to get a stronger fugitive slave law, and then Texas, again, remember, drops its claims to the New Mexico territory. Also, one last thing, the slave trade is abolished in Washington, D.C. Of course, we got a memory aid for this. It's called POP Fact. POP stands for popular sovereignty. F in fugitive slave law, it's going to be strengthened. A, the abolition of the slave trade in Washington, D.C. California is going to enter the country, the nation, as a state, a free state at that. And Texas, again, gives up their claims to New Mexico in exchange for $10 million. Alrighty, any questions for me? If you do, always remember, put them in the comment section at the bottom of the haiku page. Folks, in conclusion, kind of a wrap up, a summary of this compromise of 1850. The fugitive slave law by far becomes the most important controversy over this. Northerners despised it, especially abolitionists. It kind of forces them to help Southerners help them retrieve their slaves. Alrighty. Remember, many northern states refused to accept the fugitive slave law. The federal government said, hey, you have to anyways. Alrighty. And of course, here's an image of, famous image, slide 36 here, in the North, in Boston, where you can see Northerners are warning blacks, free blacks, hey, with the strengthened fugitive slave law, there's very little we can do for you. In the end, folks, we believe the North got the better deal with the compromise. California is going to give the North an advantage in the Senate. Ultimately, New Mexico and Utah are going to favor the North. $10 million wasn't much to keep, Texas from invading another state. The slave trade was stopped. In the end, alrighty, the compromise of 1850 is going to benefit the North. They're going to be able to expand. They get California, this huge, massive state. It's going to allow them to grow, especially their industry.